Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 13th, 2025 City of Bloomington Utility Service Board meeting. Real quick, CBU's mission is to enhance the quality of life in our community by providing safe, sustainable, and high-quality drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater services in a cost-effective manner, promoting public health, economic vitality, and environmental stewardship. If any board member has any personal or financial conflict with any issues or individuals on the agenda, then please be sure to recuse yourself during those portions of the meeting. Starting with the agenda, let's start with petitions and communications. Are there any petitions and communications from the public? Okay, next we have the appeal of the service fee charge of David Weirhock. Apologies on the pronunciation.
I'm going to pronounce it Weirhake. But I don't know if I have it right either.
Okay.
So I'll apologize in advance if I'm saying it incorrectly. But this evening we have before us an appeal from a water customer with regards to a charge that CBU placed on his billing for 2 service calls to his property. One was to turn off the water service for $45, and the other one was then to go back out and turn on the water service, also for $45. So he received a bill for those $90 of service call charges, and he appeals the assessment of those charges on his water bill. The client or the customer is David Weirhake, and he, for reasons that we don't know, missed payment on 2 of his water bills, 2 consecutive payments in '24. It was the September 2024 water bill and the October 2024 water bill. CBU followed its protocols and procedures and in Bloomington Municipal Code by sending him a notice. It was in writing, and it was to his residence explaining the reason for the notice that was provided to terminate his service, and that was for these delinquent bills. Robin Guyton is here, and she is our account collection specialist, and she would tell you that historically from time to time, this particular customer has been known to miss a couple of months worth of payment. He would then receive his notice telling him when we were going to terminate his service. And historically then he would traditionally make payment on that bill 1 or 2 days prior to the termination date, and then everybody would go on their merry way. But this time, we don't know why, he just didn't get it paid that in time. So on the date, it wasn't even on the day that we noticed, it was days beyond the date that we said that we could terminate his service. Actually, on a Tuesday, November 12th at 10 o'clock in the morning, we terminated his service. This charge that he is wanting to have removed from his bill is a charge that we have had vetted and reviewed and approved not only by this board in the past, dating back as far as 1979, as far as I can tell, and maybe before that, but the oldest ordinance that has this charge showed as 1979. So we've had this charge for a very long time. The current iteration was approved in 2016 by this board, also by the City Council, and then by the utilities, the IURC. And so that's how we are currently at the rate of $45 for each service call. We followed our protocols. We did what we were required to do to serve this utility, and I'm recommending that this board deny the appeal. Mr. Weirhake has indicated not once but twice by email that he's not going to attend. He feels as though he's presented his information to the board sufficiently, and he's not going to attend this evening's meeting. But I'm asking that the board deny his appeal and approve the charges of $45 per visit for the total of $90. I'm happy to answer questions. Yes.
So What is his basis for the appeal?
That my understanding is that he did not realize that the notice that he received was a notice for disconnect. But that's what it was, a notice for disconnect. He indicated he misplaced it or it was lost in a pile of papers, but somehow he didn't realize that we were going to disconnect him. So there isn't anything that he points to that he thinks that utilities did wrong. He just didn't notice that he was going to get disconnected, and he didn't like that he got disconnected. He paid on the same day as the disconnect. So we were right back out later that afternoon and reconnected him.
So it's my understanding that those two calls were the $45 each, and that's how we came up with the $90.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
In the case of in-person disconnects like that, is there an attempt to make contact in person while staff is out there? Or is it just the written notice is the only form?
Well, Robin has some information about how many times we might tell them, hey, you're subject to disconnect. So it's not just a notice. I think there are several written notices that occur, but CBU does not have a protocol to try and reach out in person to talk to somebody about the issue when there's going to be a disconnect.
Okay.
So we don't have that sort of a communication dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, were you thinking maybe we'd knock on the door and
Yeah.
say, hey, we're here to turn off your water because you haven't paid the bill?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fail-safe.
Yeah, so I
mechanism,
will
of
say
course, it's
this,
just-
when somebody goes out to turn off water, they are equipped with the information as to how much the bill is and how they're supposed to go out about paying it, but they don't try to have a dialogue with anybody at the property. They do put a hang tag on the door. So not only do you get these notices in the mail, you also have the hang tag on the door, but the person that's out there to do the service is not there to provide a dialogue with the customer.
Got it. I'm just wondering if, it might help prevent situations. If it was, I once had my water disconnected for similar reasons. I failed to pay it for 2 months. I'm sure I got the notices. I'm sure, I just didn't see it in the mail or was gone, or I don't know what happened. But it wouldn't catch everybody, surely, but it might mitigate to a degree the circumstance. Not saying it's CBU's fault, just, yeah.
I appreciate the thought behind that, I think. And in most cases, I would hope that would work out well, but I would be concerned putting our staff safety in jeopardy by knocking on the door and say, hey, we're here to cut off your water. And so I also believe that the customer's prior payment history is irrelevant to this case, as far as for these 2 months, they missed the payment. And our procedures were followed to notify the customer that the payment was due, and this would be the consequence if it wasn't received. It's unfortunate that they didn't make the payment in time, but I would agree to deny the appeal.
Yes, and I'd like to make a comment. The reason I wanted the board to know that he's had these instances in the past is just to try and help you appreciate that he's not wholly unfamiliar with this process. It's not like this was a one-time deal and he just didn't know what was going on.
I just want to get to your point, Matt, about trying to have better lines of communication. Megan's correct in that, we don't encourage our staff to knock on the door for safety reasons, because most of the time people don't like to hear that their water's getting turned off. But we are working towards having text notifications. And so we're hoping that we'll have more success reaching our customers through there.
Yeah, a few months back, we updated our rules and regulations, changing some of the methods by which we do our communications in these instances to include electronic communication. So hopefully that's going to help eliminate some of these concerns for people.
Just to tie this up, it was my understanding that he received 2 mail notices, an email, and the door tag. Is that correct?
I believe he received 2 written communications and a door tag.
Okay.
Is that right, Robin? Two written communications of disconnect and a door tag?
One written communication, plus his bill indicates
That's what I meant. There was,
Yeah,
on
bill.
one of the bills, it tells, it
Gotcha.
states that you are eligible for disconnect, and then we send an actual notice of disconnect, and then they also get the door tag.
I thought there was an email in there as well. My apologies, yeah.
I'm not aware of an email.
No,
Yeah,
we're
no.
not there yet.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Do we have a motion to,
I move that we deny the appeal.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor to deny the appeal of Mr. Weir Hake's appeal, say aye.
Aye.
Jeff, are you on?
So I am, if I can vote, I vote aye as well to denying the appeal.
We have to do a roll call vote.
Yes, we do, and we need to have Jeff's, I didn't know Jeff was on by virtual, and so he needs to be, we need to see his face on the screen. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that we had a board member who was logging in.
Jeff, do you have your camera? There we go.
And so, yeah, it needs to be a roll call vote. In fact, everything from here on out, you'll want to do a roll call tonight, okay?
Sherman,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Eamon,
Yes.
Arminder,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Deborah? Yes. Motion, appeal is denied.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry I have to leave this evening, but I'll be sure to watch the rest of the meeting on cats.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe. Moving on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on December 30th, 2024. Are there any questions on the minutes? I have one thing, Frank. David Hiddle's name's twice on the board members present. Anything else? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we have to do a roll call. Sorry.
White? Yes.
Eamon?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Deborah? Yes.
Yes.
All right, minutes pass. Now we're at approval of the claims. We will start with the payable invoices. And from the 1229 general ledger, we have a total amount of $851,754.41. Are there any questions on the accounts payable from that date?
Yeah, I noticed there was a charge for a new truck. I think it was 170,000. If my what?
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, if my memory is right, I thought there was a truck on 2 weeks ago for the amount. I just want to make sure it's a different truck.
We bought 2 dump trucks, yeah.
Okay.
When we paid for the first one, we didn't get the second one on the register.
Okay.
Nice. Any other questions?
I move we approve the standard invoices.
All right,
Second.
all right, roll call.
Eamon,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Moving along to the other set of payable invoices. We have a total amount of $13,888.27. Are there any questions on that? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Stewart,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Devereaux,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Sherman,
That passes. Moving on to our utility claims. We have a total of $17,759.94. Are there any questions on that?
Move approval of utility bills.
So, second.
Sherman,
Yes.
Devereaux,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
All right, moving along to wire transfers. We have a total amount of $611,382.79. Any questions? We have a motion to approve.
I move approval of the wire transfers.
Second.
White,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Devereaux,
Yes. Finally, we have customer refunds for a total amount of $2,585.22. Any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move approval of customer refunds for this evening.
Second.
White,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Devereaux,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Nice. Item number 6 on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda for $754.59. Catherine Zager.
Good evening, I'm Catherine Sager, Utilities Director. I'm presenting tonight's consent agenda pending controller approval, totaling $754.59. The only contract on the agenda is with Corson Fire and Security, Inc. for $754.59 for alarm communicator upgrade at the Utility Service Center. Is there any member who wishes to consider one or more of these items individually? Hearing none, if there is no opposition, these items will be approved as recommended by staff. Hearing no opposition, the consent agenda is approved.
Thank you. Item number 7 is a request for approval of agreement for services with M.E. Simpson Company. Nancy Axum. Hello.
Nancy Axum, I'm from engineering. This is a contract for our maintenance and capacity testing for all of our fire hydrants in our system. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Nancy, tell us how we do that. Do we do them all, or do we do them on a rotating basis, some each year? Do we test every one every year? And
Sure.
do we look at capacities for each one? I remember we used to have them color-coded. Are they still that way? And
Yes.
repainted and things?
Yes. The maintenance is done on every hydrant in the system, and the capacity testing is intended to be done on a quarterly basis. We do 1/4 of the city each time this is done. Based on those results, they're able to classify, the capacity testing will classify the hydrant based on the outcome of the test, and that's what determines the blue, the orange, or the yellow, the red, and the green bonnets that you see around the city.
Great.
And we do that painting. The contractor does not do that painting.
So if they find one that's not working like it should, and we get a report back and we try to figure that out then, right?
They will tell us what they found, anything that's operating incorrectly, or if something is seized up. Oftentimes a valve will be seized up and they won't be able to open it or close it all the way. They will report that on their findings, and we go out and we make those repairs. They don't make any repairs. They just do the maintenance on it, which would include greasing and operating valves, and making sure they drain properly, because here we want a dry hydrant so that they don't freeze in the winter. So they have to drain properly as well.
So they do the maintenance work as well? as-
No,
don't,
they
we
tell
do.
us what's wrong, and our water maintenance crew goes out and does the fixes.
Great. How do we handle, I've always wondered about industrial buildings. They've got their own systems, but do they come off of one of our lines, and are they responsible for testing them, or does it come to a point where we have to test something and then the large user would test the rest?
It depends. It depends if they have a private fire loop with hydrants on it, and we can tell on our map, which they're color-coded on our map. Those people who have private hydrants, it's their responsibility to test their systems. They should be under the same guidelines as we are. We don't follow what they do. We don't dictate what they do. It's their private system. But they should want to have their hydrants tested as well. I do know from the Bloomington Fire Department, they would prefer to use a public hydrant if possible, because they know our process, and they're generally color-coded properly too. So the private ones aren't always color-coded. Although private hydrants are supposed to be painted a certain color on the barrel, they should follow the same guidelines that we do for the bonnet colors, but oftentimes, like all of IUs are all red. So the bonnet color of red is actually the worst of the, how the hydrant is graded, but they're all red.
But you have to have Pantone 201 red, be the official IU color. I mean, that's part of
Sure.
it, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then does this include, it's all of them in the city limits?
It's
But-
in our whole system,
in our
not
whole
city
system,
limits.
So it could be outside the limits?
Yes,
Or-
it's our water jurisdictional area. It's our entire water distribution system. The city limits doesn't have anything to do with it.
So then it's systems that buy water from us as well?
It only goes to our meter to them. It does not go beyond. If
Okay.
they have fire hydrants, then those are theirs, beyond a system meter.
You know, I bring some of this up because I've heard a lot over the last week about fire hydrants.
Oh, yes, we
And
have.
What I learned is that there are a whole lot of people that don't know that the fire hydrants take the same supply off of our municipal water system. So
yeah.
I think there was a lot of confusion in the world about, there were separate lines, large supply lines that go to fire hydrants, but that's not the case.
Not in our system. I can't speak for how their system works, but we have a water level in our tanks that's our operating range as for our daily use. We actually go below that for extra use for water, for fire needs also. So we like to keep in that operating range, but we can go below. That's bottom of the operating range isn't the bottom of the tank. So we maintain this area up here, and we do still have water down here for that. But they had a lot of pull coming off of all of those hydrants. I would say if we had something going on like that,
Well, you know, I
might
actually
be a
asked the
challenge to
question
keep
last
up.
week. How much water does it take to extinguish a fire for a standard two-story home, three-bedroom, two-story house, average fully engulfed in flames? And the answer I got back was 30,000 gallons.
oh,
So,
I was gonna defer to the fire department.
well, I asked them,
Okay,
and, because a lot of people have been talking about this. So,
sure.
if you think about it, we've got 7 tanks, and we can produce between 10 and 15 million gallons of water a day. Even if you had a natural gas explosion where part of a neighborhood was on fire, we'd be in pretty good shape. But a conflagration like they would have in California we're not gonna have that here. So people can still feel pretty confident about where we are with things here in Bloomington, I think.
And they're pulling off, my logical thinking, they're pulling off in several areas, all from the system. So your example was one house. They're pulling off of their distribution system in many, many, many locations.
Right,
So
sure.
exponentially, they're using water.
Well, thanks for doing this. It shows that we're
Sure.
keeping the system well-maintained for its use the way it should be. And I think that when our users see that line on their monthly statement about fire protection, they know that it goes to this kind of project, and they can depend on it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Well said. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve the request for the agreement for services with the M.E. Simpson Company?
So moved.
Second.
Stewart,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving along, we have a request for approval of amendment number 1 with Black and Veatch Corporation. Dan Hudson.
Hello, for the record, I'm Dan Hudson, Capital Projects Manager for the City of Bloomington, and we are asking for a time extension on the Black and Veatch contract at the Blucher Pool wastewater treatment plant. This contract is a engineering study that looks at the process and capacity of the plant, and Black and Veatch is waiting on other data to come in to finish the study. There's no increase in cost. Cost is the same, so that's where we stand.
Nice. Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
White,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Next, we have a request for approval for construction services with Cocosing Industrial Incorporated. Mark Menifee.
Hello, Mark Menifee, utility engineer. Here to ask for approval of a construction contract with Cocosing Industrial for the Dillman wastewater treatment plant, site safety and capacity improvement project. There are 3 objectives for the project. The first is to increase the capacity of the Dillman plant from 15 to 19 million gallons a day. New equipment will be added to increase the rated capacity approved by IDIM. Second, the replacement of piping at the influent pumping station. This work is in response to a piping failure nearly 2 years ago. And last, we'll make improvements to the site safety, including ventilation in the chemical building and fall protection improvements. Cocosing Industrial was the low bid at $5,025,000. The timeline for completion is 2 years, and I ask for approval of this contract. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Is this part of rate request?
This
The
is
last
funded
one?
by the 2023 bonding, sewer bond.
Great. Okay.
It's part of the capital improvement plan.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Yeah, there's a few placeholders in here, in the version that I'm looking at. I just wanted to make sure that the signed version has those complete: requisition number, contract expiration date, and account number.
Yeah, we'll make sure. Yep.
Anything else from the board? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Stewart,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a request for approval of Resolution 20250-01 to designate surplus property for auction. Jose Fuentes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Fuentes, and I'm the purchasing manager here at CBU. And we are wanting to auction slash dispose of this equipment that we have and of our properties.
Okay. Any questions about the items or process?
I move approval for designation of surplus property.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sherman,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Yes.
Stewart, Deborah,
Yes. Thank you. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Request for approval of CBU's Stormwater Design Manual. Phil Peden and Caden Swanson.
Good evening, Phil Peden with Engineering, here to request approval for the Stormwater Design Manual. And first, I would like to credit Kat and Liz for all their help with this. They really brought this along. I also want to introduce Sam Robertson, professional engineer with Clark Dietz, who did a lot of the groundwork to get this all to where it's at today. And of course, Caden Swanson's been working directly with him, so I want to introduce him as well. This was last presented to the Utility Service Board on July 1st, so it's been a while. And during that time, we've presented to the public, local developers, engineers, as well as our city engineering department for several rounds of comments. So we got one round, responded to those questions, changes. Second round, that's why we're here today. We've completed the second round. And with the second round of comments, we had 43, and that resulted in 15 changes. And so we do appreciate the responses that we received, and we think that made it a better overall design manual for us to use as we proceed with reviews on projects and as we reference it for our design standards. So it was a good process. Would like to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, did you say you had some, like, focus groups or town hall meetings or something with the community that normally does this engineering work?
Well, we shared the document with them, and then we had a Google document that we put all the comments in, and then as an internal staff, we reviewed all those comments together with Sam Robertson as well with Clark Dietz.
Did you distribute it to our normal group of local contractors and engineers?
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's great that we got, I noticed, I looked through a lot of the comments, and there's a lot of things you just wouldn't think of unless you're the guy out there with a shovel.
Yeah.
Or with the pencil trying to design it. So that's great. We're not going to use pencils anymore. I guess it's all computer-aided drafting.
I told Caden we're not coming down from Mount Sinai with 2 stone tablets that are chiseled in stone here. So we don't have everything on here that's probably going to end up on here, or there will be changes after a few years of working through this with developers, engineers, contractors. So we know it's not the end all, and we know it's a living document that we'll be making changes to. That's why it is coming to the board and not in a city code, but something that you approve so that we can come back with a change if we need to.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve the CBU Stormwater Design Manual?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Line item 12, old business from the board. Old business from staff. New business from the board. New business from staff? We didn't have any subcommittees, so there's no subcommittee reports today. Staff reports.
First, I just want to personally say thanks to all the CBU staff and also all the city staff who worked through that big snowstorm earlier this week and again on Friday. It's tough driving in it, and I really am grateful for all the folks who came to provide essential services for the city and to keep our water running and to keep our plants running. I'm very grateful. Second, I also wanted to thank the board for coming to the retreat on Friday. I felt like it was really productive, and I'm looking forward to this new year of getting to work together. And then finally, I wanted to take some time to acknowledge someone who greatly contributed to both CBU and the city, who passed earlier this month. John Langley. I'm just going to read something I sent to staff about him, because it's better than just me rambling up here. So John Langley, he was, during his 41-year tenure, John was a dedicated public servant who rose through the ranks of the city to become the deputy director of CBU when he retired in 2018. His previous roles with the city included housing code enforcement director, personnel director, administrative assistant to the mayor, PCB coordinator, and assistant director of plant operations. While his contributions to the city are numerous, some of his greatest work was in the environmental field. He improved local environmental regulations during his time at CBU, and his most notable achievement was his dedicated and skillful navigation of the remediation of PCBs in our community. This was a highly fraught issue during the 80s, and the city couldn't have had a better person leading this effort. John oversaw the entire PCB remediation from start to finish, leaving a legacy of a safer and healthier Bloomington behind him. I only got to know him for a few short months while he was here as interim director, but I was honored to work with him, and I'm inspired by the legacy that he leaves behind. Those who knew him well reflected on how he was a charismatic man of great character and good judgment, who knew how to have the hard conversations the right way, and who always had a really good story to tell. He's going to be missed by a lot of people here at the city. And that's my staff report.
Thank you. Much like you, I had a brief time with Mr. Langley, but he was always nice and helpful, and a warm smile to see out in the audience here. So he will be missed, and we thank him greatly for his contributions to our community. Any words from the board?
Most of the people here weren't around to remember the early 90s, but 1991 city election, PCBs was the big issue in that election. And there was a lot of controversy, a lot of difficulty in resolving it, and John was there all the time and, just navigated us through that.
I'd add to that, Jim, and second everything that's been said here. Really, if you weren't here then, it's hard to get the gravity of what he did during that period of time when we were navigating the PCB questions. It was a very, very divided controversial time in the history of our city that lasted 10 years. And Jim and I were reflecting on that here last week, and I said that I felt like during that first term on the city council, really that 88 through the early 90s period of time, as I look back on it, we spent half of our city council time on the PCB remediation issue. Half. It was a constant drumbeat of different alternatives, different opinions, different experts that would come in from all over the country, negotiating with the EPA, negotiating with Westinghouse, and all the time trying to respect how the city and the community felt, trying to decide what the best remediation plans were, whether we should bury it all, whether we should burn it. The list went on, and John was the guy. He kept us on that straight path and could balance all of the different opinions. It's really hard to imagine how difficult a time that was. I remember riding back and forth to Chicago with him, meet with EPA folks. We met with officials in Washington. They'd come here. We had local meetings and community forums all the time. It truly did impact the results of city elections because of the different opinions. Some people said that if we had an incinerator, we were going to die of cancer one way or the other was the concern. And whether we left it in the ground, whether we buried it someplace, or whether we burn it and had the effluent floating around. So the bottom line is that John was just invaluable. A lot of times you get placed in the right place at the right time in life, and for him, I think we were blessed to have the right person at the right place at the right time, and we can be proud of how he served, even though he wasn't that whole time a senior member of the utility staff. And remember that utilities paid for all of that legal work and staff work that the city did. It was all in the utilities budget because it was in our sewer plants. That was the way we did it, and John coordinated all that along with other city leaders. And at that, we mentioned where he was, I think it was, the title then was assistant to the mayor. In those days, that's equivalent today to being deputy mayor. So the assistant to the mayor back then was really a deputy mayor in the 80s. So he had a big role to play, and I'm glad we've had a chance to reflect a little bit about it. And we send our sincere condolences to the family, and I think we might do something a little more formal here before too long. Thanks.
So I mentioned that PCBs was the biggest issue in the 1991 election, and Kirk is right. It was very deterministic for that election. Matt, would you like to guess what the biggest issue was in 1995?
I won't hazard a guess, but I'd like to learn.
Affordable housing. And we're still there.
Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing your comments. I also want to echo Director Zager's comments to the staff for all their hard work over the past week during the bad weather. Thank you on behalf of the board. We know this is what we do, but it's not always easy, so it is appreciated. Anything else from staff? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. I was asking the board retreat to talk about the sewer lateral committee meeting that we had earlier this week. So just a little update on that. We had the meeting the meeting mostly was to give a little background on how we went about analyzing how many we might have, and the cost of that, and then looked at a few examples of how some other municipalities are kind of tackling that issue. And then at our next meeting, I've asked all the members of that committee to kind of look at some other places, do some research of their own, and kind of bring back some ideas. And we were going to start a document to try to follow through on some of that, to talk about implementations of that and what it looks like, and how that would impact our utility. Just to kind of give you an overview, we believe there are potentially a little over 12,000 clay sewer laterals. And depending on how we go about fixing, if we would fix all those, it would be between $55 and $77 million. So it's a large number, either way you look at it. Again, there's multiple ways that municipalities have looked at this, either just pushing it off and giving it to private insurance, or doing some kind of rate case to try to generate a separate fund to kind of pay for these things. And so that's kind of what we're looking at, to see what may be the best alternative for the city of Bloomington. So that's just
Remind me again, these are the clay
clay,
laterals?
clay laterals, correct. So that's
Between 12 and 15,000?
no,
12,000.
12,000. There's like 12,700 and something. We have some that are already on line sewer mains. There's some intricacies that have to deal with if the sewer main's already lined or not lined, or whether you can line it. So that number I gave, that 77 million to 55 million, 55 million is lining the sewer lateral. 77 million is actually trench digging it up and doing that. But if we go down this road, it will probably be a combination of both ways of doing it. But
Wow.
And the goal would
Thank
be
you for
to
that.
help solve infiltration, right?
yeah, so from the utility side, there's a large cost on what we call I&I. We have some programs in place that we're trying to help with the first I. The infiltration is the second I, where we get a lot of this. And our engineering group, we're still doing some calculations and looking at it, and it's kind of hard to give you an exact number, but we believe it's a high percentage of the I&I actually comes through the sewer lateral. And so that would be a cost benefit to us. The reason we started looking at this is because it, can cost a homeowner between $40,000 and $50,000 to replace the sewer lateral, because it runs from their house all the way to the city main, which, depending on where the city main may be all the way across the street, or it may just be in your sidewalk. But on average, that's how much it's costing, because of external contracting costs and permitting costs and things of that nature.
Any other questions?
Thanks for the info.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Do we have any petitions and communications from the public? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Meeting's adjourned.